January albums of the month, let's go. I got a lot of stuff to talk about. There is three I'm not going to be mentioning here, which is Sick Joy's new record, More Forever, Mold with Dream Crush, and Soft Cult's new album. They're going to get separate videos, but everything else that came out in January that I'm going to talk about will be here. So, starting off, we have the new one by Wildhunt. This is kind of like your heavy metal, progressive, thrash metal, whatever you want to call it. Not bad, to be honest. It's one of the first albums I reviewed, listened to rather, but this one's quite fun. It's got some nice charm to it. I like the vocals, and I think that some of the riffs are really cool on this one. Not the biggest fan. I think there's definitely good potential, but it's not something that like absolutely blew me away. It's just kind of like a nicely, decently good listen. So that's kind of where I'd stand with it. Give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's that bad at all. We've got the new one by Ellende, Zerfall, kind of like atmospheric black metal, a bit of black gaze, but mainly just kind of like post-black metal, pretty much a lot of that. Zerfall was one that I saw was getting quite a bit of attention on the review side of things, so I wanted to check it out, and I'm not the biggest fan. I feel like it's just kind of the composition of some of the songs on the second half aren't quite clicking for me. I like some of the ideas. I love the fact that one or two songs bring in like these kind of more string, kind of like more string orchestral elements, and it's cool. I like it, but I don't find this to necessarily blow me away, to be honest. It's kind of like a fine listen. There's some good quality there, but as of atmospheric black metal goes, I just find this one to be kind of underwhelming and not quite the hype that I saw it was getting, to be honest. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's alright. Got the new one by Arcane, Frost, Knights Cavalry. Yeah, this is kind of like a newish band. I guess I think it's their debut, and you can definitely tell for this black metal band that they are starting off quite rough. Sound-wise, there is just generally some production and mixing issues here, which is the main reason it's not a favourite of mine. But I feel like as an effort and performance-wise, it sounds pretty decent for what it goes for. I just think it needs to have a bit more like kind of care and be quite a bit cleaner to make it this kind of more solid experience. Don't mind it, but yeah, it's not that bad, to be honest. I think it's got some fun charm. Give it a 2.5 out of 5. Got the new one by Catalyst, coming, thank God. Your kind of like screamo album, and Catalyst here give you kind of a pretty decent record, with some fun ideas. I feel like some songs have some really unique elements to it that makes the second half kind of have some very good variety, in my opinion. I honestly really enjoy it, but yeah, outside of that, it's just decent. I like the vocalist on this. I think the Uncleans are quite cool. Yeah, I haven't got much else to say than that. Catalyst was just decent. Give it a 3 out of 5. It's not bad. Smoke Rites, Eager Eyes, Talion. So a new sludge metal band here, and I wasn't expecting anything to be like acid bath level of like epic, but Smoke Rites actually gives us a pretty good solid listen here. I think the only thing that I would probably say brings this one down a bit is just kind of some of the production on it. It still sounds pretty good, but there is some moments it's a bit down, and some of the writing, I guess it could be a bit better, because there's definitely some weaker, lesser inspired moments, but the entire album is definitely a solid listen still, and for a small sludge metal band, I'd recommend it. It's quite a fun time, and out of everything I talked about so far, probably the best album here at the moment. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Pretty decent, pretty underrated. Definitely recommend this one. Lionheart, Valley of Death 2. So they got a sequel to Valley of Death. This is a beat down hardcore band, and I'm not the biggest fan of them, but it's fine. I think the biggest issue I have is when you kind of get in songs that have them referencing "We're the Dogs" and stuff like that. It just comes off as cringe, especially when he does this random arf arf in the middle of the song and does it repeatedly. It's annoying. There's a lot of points where they just literally refer to their fans which, I mean, it's kind of cool to do callback, but they just do the same thing again and again. The songs just sound the same. It's cool they did have Matt Tuck from Bullet My Valentine on this, but I don't think that really saved the song, to be honest. Just generally, just an okay listen. Instrumentally, it does have some fun energy to it. It's definitely something I can imagine gym bros who like their beat down hardcore, like they're kind of like Kublai Khan sort of artists. Yeah, Lionheart probably would be in that mix, but minus that, it's not really that good. I'll just give it a 2.5 out of 5. I did contemplate giving it a lower score, but a 5 out of 10 kind of seems fitting. There is some effort, and I don't think the vocalist is bad. It's just writing wise, this kind of makes Paleface Swiss look like Shakespeare, so I don't really know what you can say about that. We got the new one by Dry Cleaning, Secret Love. Dry Cleaning, kind of like a spoken word indie group, and yeah, this is probably the worst album of theirs. I'm not a big fan of spoken word because it's just someone speaking with cool instrumentals, and the problem is there isn't really any cool instrumentals. The instrumentals are just very meh, they're just kind of there. But the biggest downside to this has got to be the vocalist just sounds so bored. There is one or two songs where there might be elements of singing, there might be a bit more of a tone change, but it's just so boring. It's like the most monotone voice I can think of listening to this. So I really don't see who it's for. And Album of the Year page did give this a must hear, but that's on the critics side. I don't know if the critics were paid to love this, but I can guarantee it is nowhere near that good, and I honestly think this is probably the first bad album on this list. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. It's just, it doesn't really work with the very monotone voice. It just makes this a very a slog of a listen, and one that I probably wouldn't even bother going to even consider going back into. The new one by the Cribs, Selling a Vibe. The Cribs have had some pretty good stuff, but here they're kind of going for a bit more of a poppy rock direction rather than kind of their indie rock, and you know, fair play to the Cribs. They've been going for a bit, they want to experiment a bit, and it's not half bad. I feel like there is some good potential here, but it just kind of feels like we're getting kind of like middle of the range Cribs energy. And while there is some genuinely good loving stuff, I love the song the lead singer wrote about his brother. It's very nice. There's definitely some like kind of like more heartfelt moments on here. This also just kind of comes off as a bit of a dragged on approach, unfortunately. Give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's got some good moments, but I'm not really a fan of it. We got Beyond the Black, Break the Silence. Another 2.5 out of 5. There's a lot of these on this list, unfortunately. I just felt like there wasn't really that many stinkers, but there was not really anything that was that great, so it was kind of like a, you know, I don't hate it, don't like it, and I felt that strongly with January here. Beyond the Black, yeah, this is just a bit of a step down from their self-titled album. That album was a lot stronger, if anything, and I just find this one just doesn't really even hold a candle to it. It's got some experimental ideas, which is nice, and I do think personally I like that it's a bit more unique than the last album. The last album was a bit too predictable and safe, but at the same time it does give us some big down quality as well. The last song, though, being in German, was a very nice touch, and I think that's honestly quite a highlight for this bit of a softer German vocal track. It is pretty good, but I wasn't really impressed with this record. Yeah, as I said, 2.5 out of 5. Wait, what did you say? Stay safe, little one. This is in a solo project. I can't remember the person's name. I'll put it on screen, but this was one that was like really beloved. It just had such a warm, positive reception to it, and I had to give it a listen. It's definitely got some really fun, like, slacker rock, emo, post-hardcore feel to it, and honestly, the only thing that kind of brings it down for me is I'm not a fan of the vocals on this one, but I still think there's still a lot of effort. I mean, it's one person doing the drumming, the guitars, the bass, the vocals. It's a solo project just done by one person, but it works great. Feels like they had all these ideas just in their bedroom, wrote a record, and it's managed to be one of the highest rated albums on Album of the Year. So I'm very surprised by that, and honestly think it's got some good charm to it. I generally think it's worth a listen if you're kind of into your slacker rock emo sort of sound. I give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's got some decent fun energy to it. I quite like this one. Next we got Blanket, True Blue. Blanket, just kind of a bit of a grunge gaze, soft grunge gaze album. Nothing special, nothing original, nothing really that exhilarating, but it does a good job in being this kind of like standard normal sound. I really like how clean it sounds. There are some songs that actually work so well on this, but the average experience is that it's good, and that's kind of how I feel. It's just good. That's it. So I give this one a 3 out of 5. We have DZ Deathrays, or DZ Deathrays, depending on where you're from. Easing Out of Control. There is some absolute strong songs on here that I really enjoy. There's songs like Easing Out of Control, the title track, which definitely a highlight. But then you get songs like Piss in the Wind. That kind of play into this, let's be kind of silly, edgy humour on this, and this song kind of comes off as more of a Limp Bizkit feeling song, trying to do the dance punk alt rock sound, and it doesn't work. There's some cool elements, but I feel like this band's biggest issue is they can really write some good shit no matter what album it is, but they're not consistent as they used to be. There's just quite a few songs that bring this one down. The last song is a very, very emotional, well crafted track, pretty much just about the passing of someone you know, and pretty much not being able to say goodbye and attending the funeral. It's a very dark, melancholy, cathartic song, but it generally shows there is a spark of creativity with how well it's handled. It's one of the best songs, along with Easing Out of Control, and there are a few others as well, but I feel like this is generally not one of their best albums to say. Give it a 2.5 out of 5. Next we got The Damned, not like everybody else. This is The Damned's cover album, and the only song I actually really knew from this was See Emily Play, the Pink Floyd song, which I think is also probably the best song on the album, because it just manages to bring like a really fun new perspective onto it, but everything else is just kind of fine. You get a good start on this album. By the time you're on the second half, the covers just don't really feel engaging. I rather wish we had a new album just like Darkadelic, something that's full of original material, especially since we have Rat Scabies back now, and I feel like we don't get really to see his full potential coming back into the band, so it's just kind of alright. It's a 2.5 out of 5 yet again, as I did warn you. That's a lot of them on here. Cold Night for Alligators, With All That's Left, a very weird progressive metal album that kind of doesn't really do much progressive metal, and it's more, I guess, alt-rock or prog-rock. It's such a weird combination of ideas with this one. Like, sometimes I feel like we're getting a softer version of Richelieu. It does give me this feel of Vola at times, and I do like when they do bring in the prog metal elements, but it's such a weird album that makes bands like Haken and Leprous just look like the simplest music out there, and that's shocking. Cold Night for Alligators is a kind of a prog metal project I've not really been a huge fan of, but I've liked some of their some elements to their last record, and this one is just very weird. It's not bad, but it's not very strong either. It's another 2.5 out of 5 for me. Oh boy, we got another one. Crystal Lake, The Weight of Sound. The thing is, the reason I give Crystal Lake the 2.5 score is that it generally has got some good ideas, a few good ideas, but it just kind of feels like the watered down version of the bands that we've known from this kind of metalcore, progressive metalcore element. I think since we lost Rio, the lead singer, it's just kind of lost its spark now, and we've kind of got this weird direction of just basic ideas, the same breakdowns, the same sort of writing we've heard before. Crystal Lake are just kind of giving you this few elements of joy, but it feels like more of a nothing burger of just the same rehashed material that just doesn't really fit with Crystal Lake's stronger sound. Like, it's heavy, it's very screamy and aggressive almost throughout the entire album, and I think it's a cool idea to explore that, but it doesn't really do anything to make it warrant its existence. Why didn't Crystal Lake just stick to the normal blend of metalcore instead of going for this more aggressive, unclean vocal pitch the entire time? It just doesn't really bring much to the table that hasn't been done before. So I give this one, yeah, as I said, 2.5 out of 5 already. I got another one, Edenbridge, Set the Dark on Fire, another 2.5 out of 5. The issue I have with this one is it's probably the most bare bone, driest attempt at continuing the sound. Edenbridge is the kind of symphonic power metal band that has had quite a bit of a reputation of just having a lot of fun elements to it, and I can see the elements working. There is some great guitar work, even on the first track, but I just feel like every song drags stuff out. Every song just needs to have these long vocal passages, these long drawn out guitar segments, or these long symphonic elements that just make these songs just feel so boring and takes so long to get through. And I think having an album where it just feels like a slogfest isn't very exciting. The energy is there, the performance is good, and I don't think it's bad, but it just drags on so much. I can't enjoy it in the same way others might. It's pretty much the bottom of the barrel, 2.5 out of 5 for me, pushing more into a 2 out of 5, but I've scored it 5 out of 10 because there's still some joy, I guess, I had with it, but it just drags on. Joyce Manor, we got I Used to Go to This Bar. Yeah, this is probably my first bad rated album on here. Or no, I had Dry Cleaning, so second actually. Joyce Manor is a 19-minute album with 9 tracks, but it just manages to feel like filler because this is the same stuff the band's been doing and been churning out. Joyce Manor just brought this album into existence, and it just feels like a bloated EP than an album. It shouldn't even be an album because it's just 9 tracks in 19 minutes, but a lot of it I just wouldn't really bother going back into. Some slow songs with some very cheesy, corny lyrics. There are a few songs I do like The Opossum is definitely one of the ones I kind of go back into, but there's just a bunch of songs I just find hard to listen to because it's just generally not very strong. It's the pop-punk formula ran dry to this more emotional, tame, soft, sad boy era, and I'm just not a fan of this album at all. It's kind of bad. 2 out of 5 sort of score I give it. Got the new one by Of Sulfur, Endless. This deathcore blackened death metal band, I guess, is what they are. Their second album is definitely something. There's a lot of stuff I have with deathcore that kind of annoys me, how a lot of the originality into the genre is just kind of gone at that point, and I don't really understand how we have a lot of the same stuff coming out. There are numerous songs on here that just don't do anything different than your usual bloody Lorna Shore song, or there isn't really anything that does anything original than kind of Oshino. You pretty much just get the basic bare bone deathcore element with this one, but they try to experiment. So there's moments where some songs are entirely clean vocals, such as Wither, and I guess the last song does it as well. It's a very weird feeling to have some absolute aggressive stuff, but I have got some issues with this. I really don't like the clean vocals on this. They just don't really work, and I think the deathcore death metal vocals were such a better use here, but it just feels weird that you go from numerous songs that kind of remind me of the TikTok deathcore trend of Slaughter Prevail and Lorna Shore to then have a song that feels like a rip-off of Whitechapel during their more progressive experimental era of the Valley and Kin, with Wither from this record just feeling like a shit version of Hickory Creek. I can't get over it. It just feels like a waste of a listen. The songs with the features as well are some of the weakest songs, so the features were wasted. I mean, you had the guy from Distant, you had Ingested, and you had Carcosa. 3 deathcore bands that have some cool elements to them, but they just don't do anything here. This is pretty much just such a bland mess of a record that doesn't really bring in anything exciting. It tries to feel like it tries to force loads of different genres to make it feel unique. I mean, you have melodic death metal here. Such a weird blend to have here. Some songs just don't work in the context of the record, and Sulfur just gives us a very weird, endless mess with Endless, so I'm going to give this one 2 out of 5. The new one by Buzzcocks, Attitude Adjustment. Buzzcocks lead singer Pete Shelley, I think, passed away in 2018, and I don't know if he's actually been in the band up until his passing, but he is the guy who sang or took over for the original lead singer and spawned the band's biggest hit, Ever Fall in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have. And honestly, Buzzcocks had this very fun punk energy to it. They were always known as the one-hit wonder band because of that, but there's a lot of charm with Buzzcocks music, especially around the 70s, 80s. It was just buzzing with a lot of fun energy to it. But now we get this album. It just feels like Grandpa is on his needs his meds. Grandpa wants to pretty much his retirement money, and he thinks he's the rock star he used to be. What is this album? It is such a joke of a Buzzcocks record because everything about this just screams boomer energy. I mean, look at the title, Attitude Adjustment. Look at the album art. It's atrocious. It's just an old guy trying to have a fun time, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but as the quality of this album goes, it sounds awful. The music is just beyond bland, stale, and just downright probably the most pathetic Buzzcocks sound I've ever been. And I don't think there's even a single redeeming factor to this album. It is just purely one of the worst things I've heard this year. It's Buzzcocks at the ultimate lowest here. There is not a single thought of love put into this. It is just, they want to make an album, they'll churn out any idea and get the money from the album. I don't even know if they're going to tour it. I don't feel like there's any point, because the music here is just so bored. I'd be bored playing it if I was in the band. It's some of the most downright dullest and driest stuff I've heard. I'll give this a 1 out of 5. That's not my lowest rating. 0 out of 5 exists, but it's not really far off, is it? 1 out of 5 is a terrible rating, and I really did not care for the Buzzcocks new album here. So yeah, we got the new one by URNE, URNE, Setting Fire to the Sky. Thankfully, after a bunch of mediocre to weak albums, we have probably one of the best albums on the list. Oh my god, URNE's new album is just so much fun. It's sludge metal with progressive metal elements, and there's a lot of good stuff on here. Even the title track, Setting Fire to the Sky, is great. I feel like the first 4 tracks are good, but the second, third, and fourth track is like a 1-2-3 punch of just absolute pure fun madness to its amazing sludge metal sound, as well as also putting that proggy element to good use. And if it couldn't get any better, we have a 7-minute track featuring Troy Sanders of Mastodon here on Hark in the Waves. Sorry, not 7, 9-minute track of that, and it's honestly really cool because when he's on there, it feels like it takes the it just feels like he takes the helm of the ship and steers it from URNE sound to a Mastodon feel. And I know he's definitely one of the main vocalists for Mastodon, and you can tell, but it's just such a cool feature. It just generally brings so much life to this, and there is some really good stuff on this record too. I feel like the second half is much weaker outside of Hark in the Waves, and Nocturnal Forms as a bonus track definitely is better than some of the songs on the second half. Towards the Harmony Hall drags on a bit for a 7-minute track. The Ancient Horizon's got some good decent moments, but it's definitely weaker than the first bunch of songs like Be Not Dismayed, Weep Into the World, The Spirit Alive, Setting Fire to the Sky. Just absolute classic stuff. And even stuff like Ancient Horizon's not bad at all, it's still good. But I feel like the quality was, the peak was at the first bit, and there's just some genuinely good usage of brilliance towards this. Breath is my least favourite. I just don't really care for... No, Breathe. Breathe is my least favourite. I just don't think this one has as much holds a candle to the quality of everything before it. And even Nocturnal Forms, a bonus song, is a lot better, and this should have been just a normal song on the album. Generally just a really fun album, and just one of the probably the best albums this year so far, and probably the best sludge metal. I think this beats Smoke Rites by a bit for me. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Really good. Cast, yeah. Yeah, this one's fine. I feel like Cast have some very fun energy. They kind of bring this big production feel to having these kind of like, I guess, orchestral brass instruments to kind of make this feel have a feel of this grand, I guess, approach. They have the first song, Poison Vine, which just feels big, and they got this catchy chorus. They got these hooks that hook onto you. You know, that's what hook does. But it's kind of loses the charm as you go deeper into the record. There is some good quality, but I find that this album just gets pretty stale quick, and it loses the kind of huge feel that it starts off having, so I'm not quite big on that. 2.5 out of 5. Hate Complex, Dissonance, another deathcore album, but this one's kind of a bit more slam, I guess, a bit of slam and mainly hardcore punk, deathcore, and by that it just kind of reminds me of a heavier Knocked Loose, which it has got some cool ideas. The features are decent, especially the Half Me feature on Labyrinth, but minus that, I just feel like there's some good songs here and there. I'm not a big fan of when these deathcore bands do the kind of Corey Taylor edgy voice, like the deep tone voice that you know it's going to go into some unclean, some screams or some gutturals, you know something heavy's coming, but it does that voice. It just doesn't work for this guy, I don't think. It makes it sound really off. But minus that, Hate Complex isn't bad for a debut, so it's decent. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5 yet again. There's a lot, as I warned you. Kula Shaker, Wormslayer, really good first half. It kind of loses its charm by URNE, 100%. And there is like one or two good moments after that, with Wormslayer being the highlight of the whole record. But the first few songs are great, like Good Money is just such a fun song. And there's generally just this more psychedelic, fun pop rock feel they have. But unfortunately it just slogs on for the second half so much that when you have these slower songs trying it, it's so dull. There's a 1 minute track on here that I don't even know why it exists, because it just doesn't do anything. It just tries to drag down the next songs behind it, like Wormslayer. It doesn't hype up in the slightest. It just feels like a waste of a track, and I feel like a lot of this album could have been cut into an EP and it would have been so much better, but yeah, it's fine. 2.5 out of 5. Last album, Whitelands, Sunlight Echoes. Can you guess the ranking? Yes, it's a 2.5 out of 5. It's dream pop mixed with shoegaze, which I honestly do like both the genres, but we're not getting anything really interesting here. We're just getting the kind of same formula of what that would sound like. Same instrumental idea, obviously, it would make sense, but I'm just not really falling in for the etherealness of it. The writing doesn't quite hook me in, and I feel like even if it's original compared to what the first album is, it's definitely experimenting here. It doesn't really do anything that entices me. It's just another weaker album that exists on this list. And yeah, as I give it a 2.5 out of 5. So that's everything I've reviewed. Quite a long video. Probably get this one done on the 2nd, but we'll have to see. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.